Hello and welcome to Computer Science 20S. This is Liberty Basic Unit 2, Lesson 5, or More GUI Stuff Part 4. And this is just a collection of sort of little bits and pieces of some neat stuff that you can throw into your program. So let's begin. The default text window that opens with each Liberty Basic program we create can be optionally turned off. You'll notice that every time you run Liberty Basic, it opens up an output window. This can be desirable when we don't want our application to be operated out of a text window. So if you're creating a sort of Windows-based program, you probably don't want that default text output window open. And the statement that accomplishes this effect is no main win, all one word. So all you have to do is include no main win in your program source code, in fact, anywhere at all, and it will work. Most people put it sort of in the first couple lines kind of thing to get it out of the way, but it could actually appear anywhere. That it accomplishes two things. It hides the program's main window, and it prevents the execution complete notice from appearing at the end of a program run. So it just sort of makes things look a little bit neater. This comes at a cost. The program must close itself down properly when all the windows have been closed. You must include an end command at the end of the program. So if you haven't been used to that or doing that, you really need to do that. It might crash. If you didn't, then our program would not terminate properly and there would be no error messages to clue us in. Always use an end in your programs because just closing all the windows doesn't end the program. There are kinds of programs which don't have windows open all the time, and even some which don't have any windows at all. So it's very important that you actually have an end in there. Now, structuring a GUI or a Windows-based program is it's non-intuitive. It's kind of similar to Scratch in some ways. We've sort of gotten away from that. Liberty Basic tends to operate sort of in a top to down, top to bottom kind of thing, sort of a linear fashion. When you're into Windows programming, it's very much all over the place kind of thing, and go-tos are not so much frowned upon when you're writing in this type of program. So I'm going to try to give you a bit of an example here. It's kind of confusing. Let's consider how to organize code in a logical and practical way when creating GUI programs in Liberty Basic. In the case of a program that uses more than one window, we should make sure that code for each window is grouped together. So when you've got code for multiple windows, keep all the code for that window together. Much like in Scratch where you would keep the scripts for a particular sprite together, you have to set that up yourself here in Liberty Basic. Most applications are designed around a central window that is always open and from where other windows are launched. When the central window is closed, the application ends. Below is a simple outline. This is not a working program that demonstrates the idea. So for example here, we've got open main win, open main window, user action 1, user action 2, close main window. So that's all to do with opening the main window. Then we've got open window 1 here, user action 3, user action 4. You see how they're sort of grouped together with windows. And use spaces in your program as well if you haven't already been doing that. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you. I understand it's a bit of a challenge. The names we give to our branch labels above are, of course, generic. All the code for a given window and user actions performed on it should be grouped together. By structuring things in this way, it's relatively easy to develop and debug your programs. It also allows you to write one person write one part of the code and one person write another part of the code and cut and paste together. Please note, be careful to avoid creating a program that closes all its windows but doesn't actually end. If the program stopped at an input or wait statement after closing all its windows, it will not terminate properly and resources will not be freed. If the program loops continuously after closing all its windows, then our Windows message handler will be locked out, and in this case, control break to halt the program. And this will not work at school. We are limited by security. You will get a Stack Overflow. You probably already figured those out. If you've been going through things on your own, you're a little bit hampered by the security of the school system. So please be careful. Always save backups. Some dialog boxes. Dialog boxes are a special kind of window. They are different in several respects from other windows. Pressing the Tab key causes Windows to cycle through the controls added to a dialog box. Each window is made the active one in turn. In Liberty Basic 3, which we're using Liberty 4, A window type window will also allow cycling through the controls by pressing the tab key. So much like Microsoft Windows, tab will cause you to go from dialog box to dialog box or button in a window. Dialog boxes can be made modal. This means that if I have a window open, a first window open, and I open a modal dialog box, then I'll be unable to select the first window until the modal dialog box is closed. Most about boxes are modal dialogs, as are many properties type windows. For example, if you want to select Liberty Basic's help menu and click on About Liberty Basic, you won't be able to do anything else with Liberty Basic until you close the dialog box that appears. So it forces the user to deal with that window. That's called making it modal. Dialog boxes cannot be resized by the user. Some applications are appropriately constructed completely of dialog boxes and have no other kind of window at all. And dialog boxes do not have a menu on. See help under window types for more interesting info. So dialog boxes are things like confirm and about and stuff like that. There are some simple pre-constructed dialog boxes in Liberty Basic. These are useful for displaying simple notices, asking for a yes/no response, prompting the user to type some string, or selecting a file name from most of file names. So here's some here that you can try if you want. Notice you've already seen. It just displays a window that tells you a notice, and you must deal with it. It's modal. Confirm is another one that has a yes/no and is automatically set up to use the variable answer string, and you can go different places depending on whether you say yes or no. Prompt is much like input or ask in Scratch. So for example here, prompt, please enter your name. It's much like an input. It's basically the input version for Windows. And one that you probably won't use, at least until maybe grade 11 or 12, file dialog allows you to pick a file. If you're going to import data from a text file, maybe it's high score, something like that. I'll show you how to do that in grade 11 or 12. This one's going to allow you to open up any TXT files here. So file dialog, you can play around with that if you want. We saw in one of our earlier lessons how static text control is used to label other controls in a window. Static text controls do not have to display the same label throughout the course of the program. We can print them in a similar fashion to the way that we print a text box control. Type in the example code below. So I would suggest you type this in, pause here, and type that in. You'll notice here that we've got static text, and we're going to have the words counting down. And then we're going to open the window, and we've got our trap closed. We've got a for loop here, and we're going to print to this static text. Okay, so instead of counting down, just the words counting down, we're also going to include the variable count. And you'll notice here that count goes from 10 to 1. So what this is going to do is going to say counting down. It's going to reprint that over and over, and it's going to show the number 10, 9, 8, 7, all the way down to 1. It's going to wait a second. And this is how it does that. This t-string equals time string thing, and I'm going to explain that right away. So type that in. You'll notice that after the for next loop ends, we've got a last one here where we go counting down, done. Again, we are using static text to print to static text. It doesn't have to be a one-time only thing. So go ahead and try that, pause the video, and I'll meet you after you pause. All right, so hopefully that worked okay for you. Maybe you got a syntax error that you had to deal with. Let's just talk about this little bit of the code here. So time string returns the value of the computer's clock. So you'll notice that mine here is exactly 1 o'clock on December the 2nd, 2015. So what it does is it gets the actual time from the computer time, and while t-string, which is what we set equal to it, is equal to the current time, we're going to just keep looping. So as long as those two times are equal, then we're going to keep looping here in a loop. But as soon as the new version of time string is different than the old version of time string, then it's going to stop this loop. And when does that happen? It happens exactly 1 second from now. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about here. So when t-string is set to timer string, t-string becomes the value of the clock. When t-string does not equal timer string because it's a full second has passed, then the loop will stop. And basically, it's a little way to, basically these 3 lines just is a little timer that waits exactly 1 second. So that's useful for that countdown little thing. You may or may not want to use that somewhere along the way. Just an example of printing to static text, really. Now, you're going to be mad at me here. Freeform is a utility that allows you to lay out your program windows in a graphical way. You no longer have to, and please don't share this with students that haven't gotten to this point yet, because they need to learn how to do it manually. You can use Freeform. It's available at school. You might need a little help in finding it. It basically allows you to to create your window, sort of using a cut and paste, kind of click and drag, kind of like Scratch kind of thing. And then you can export that code that created that window, and then you can modify it. It's a little bit easier than building it sort of manually. So look for Freeform. It's available on the courses drive at school. As I said, when the look of the window is satisfactory, you can save the template for future use. You can also choose to produce the code to create this window, or choose to produce the code to create the window plus an outline that includes stubs for all the controls included in the window. You may use Freeform to design windows, but you are still required to use appropriate handle names. Freeform, unfortunately, uses generic names like Window 1, Window 2. So you do have to actually go in and make changes to that. But it's still a lot easier to do. I would encourage you to do that. If you're having some trouble with that, just ask me for help. One last thing, scan is basically like a wait, except that wait is more like wait, and pause, and literally wait. Scan is like a quick check to see if there has been a mouse click, and then go to, but if not, keep on processing. So it's just a quick check. It's not a wait until something happens. It's a check and then continue. This can be used to run a timer while waiting for a click, and I would suggest that you look under the help file under scan. There is an assignment for this, all these different little bits and pieces that we've put together. So I'd like you to proceed now with the assignment called record data. You have to create a window with multiple text boxes and a button, and then get the contents out of that window and print to them. And once you've done that, then you're ready for the last project. Good luck with that.